fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime in Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, dude, with all these books written behind me here, this terrifying tower of tomes, as I all too often like to say. You can just call me Fuego for short, and I welcome you here to the horror show and my beloved program that I have been doing for over 150 episodes now, and this is like the umpteenth bit of coverage that I have done for a book which is in my top 3 of all time by Cy King, none other than his post-apocalyptic magnum opus, The Stand. So I have done spoiler live book reviews, I've done panels at Comic-Con about The Stand, you know, in all of its various iterations, whether the miniseries, the amazing Marvel comic book, the novel itself. I have 3 different copies of it. I've got the original hardcover, I've got the paperback, which adjusts just a couple dates and references and stuff like that, and then of course the uncut version with all of those amazing illustrations in it which were added, and plus all the additional chapters, and you know, getting the story to as close to King's original manuscript as was initially intended, because when that book first came out, yep, there's a lot of editor chopping down that transpired. But today we are here for presumably the last time that I will be covering at least this amazing story of Cy King's until the miniseries, which was recently announced. So just to give some context, 25 years ago today, this first aired. That's right, Mick Garris's adaptation, along with Cy King actually writing the teleplay of The Stand. So May 8th, that's right, back in 1994. I remember it oh so distinctively because of the fact that it was like my first time actually watching Stephen King stuff as it was airing and just being really excited about it. So I'd seen like some of the VHS of it, but I didn't see that when it was initially broadcasting, and plus I was like 6 and some change when it first came out, and that was a miniseries event as well. I'm trying to remember if the Tommyknockers had already aired up to this point. I'm not 100%. I should have double checked that date before I started doing this, but yeah, so 25 years ago to the day today, ABC put up the very first episode, and I was 10 years old, and I just oh so distinctively remember that, like, this was the first time I think I was just cognizant of King's storytelling and just the big screen adaptation of it. And man, that opening, Don't Fear the Reaper, Blue Oyster Cult, man, that was my first time ever hearing that song, and I was actually joking about this on social media just the other day. I still think that that is one of the most chilling scenes in the entire bit, and I know that song was introduced to a lot of people because of Will Ferrell thwacking on cowbells and stuff, and you know, that hilarious SNL sketch, but every time I hear that song, I will always think of just the scene of the painting around at the beginning of the miniseries to all of those dead bodies where, you know, Captain Trips had escaped and stuff. And so, yeah, that was my first point of reference for that song, and it was really befitting to even use that because there is the BOC quote at the very beginning of the book. And so, I mean, there's a lot of really poignant musical moments. I like the Crowded House, Don't Dream It's Over moment. That's obviously not in the book, but we do have the Boogie Fever flair in the book where, you know, our dude Harold, who has such a depressing and just kind of tragic arc in a lot of ways in this. But so, yeah, I personally contend that this is a fantastic adaptation of the source material. But the thing is, even as a 4-part, 2-hour event, it ends up coming to about like 6 and some change. I'm gonna double check. 366 minutes in total, so a little over 6 hours. But I mean, there's still so much that had to be trimmed and condensed and taken out. But you know, with Cy King actually writing the screenplay himself, he had say in that, you know. There's bits that I really wish would have made their way in, and hopefully with this new 10-part adaptation that's coming to CBS All Access, and they will have free range to kind of just go R-rated and crazy, as they've shown with that new Twilight Zone show that Jordan Peele is doing. Yeah, they can get R-rated, and I think a 10-part 1-hour episode segment each, it's still probably not it's still not enough time to give justice to a novel that's well over 1,000 pages. I want to say it's 11 and some change for the uncut version. But I mean, stuff that I would have loved to have seen. Maybe we'll end up seeing in this new miniseries, stuff like the shootout with the bikers, where they rescue Dana and stuff like that, and her crew of those women that were in like crazy sexual servitude of these whack job guys. Other stuff that would have been cool, like Harold and Larry actually meeting each other. Larry was on this quest and just built up Harold in his head, and then it would have been really cool in this to have seen, just the letdown that Larry has when he finally meets him, and he's just like, oh wow, this dude is nowhere near as clever or whatever as I had built him up into my head. Also some Nadine backstory, like the stuff with the Ouija board, where it just fully explains the scope of how she was promised to Flag to be his crazy bride and everything. So those are 3 bits that I really wish would have made their way into this, but really there are so many exceptionally well done bits in here, and the cast is stacked, absolutely stacked. And some people say that this hasn't aged as well. I completely disagree. First and foremost, I gotta give so much credit to my dude Adam Stork, because he didn't really do a lot of stuff beyond this, and he was in the Tales from the Crypt episode that I really like, where he actually plays a bad guy, but he is the perfect Larry Underwood. And Larry Underwood, as I've actually stated many times here on Hail to Stephen King, is my favorite Stephen King character that he's ever written. I just relate so much to just the tortured spirit that Larry is, and how just trying to do the right thing and just not always making the right decisions, and yet the best of intentions, but what's that old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions and all that jazz. But he is just so good in this, and it's from the heartbreaking scenes with his mother early on where she gets sick, and you can tell that he's just mixed up with the wrong people, and that he's kind of a womanizer with the phone call that he makes to the chick back in LA. And I mean, obviously going through the tunnel, it's done a lot better in the comic book, but it's still pretty well realized here in the ABC series. But my personal favorite scene, maybe in the entire miniseries, is actually where Stork is just by himself, and he's playing Eve of Destruction, and he's singing the hell out of it, and he's just like, he's surrounded by all of just the carnage and debris and just deprivation and decay and just this new landscape that we're in the midst of. And I love that song. That's another musical moment in this that I think is just very cathartic and just really, really hits the point. One choice that King did decide to make that I felt was kind of interesting, but it made sense for, just the way things transpire in the stories. Basically, they combined both of Larry's love interests into one character in Nadine, as opposed to the older one that in the book and in the comic, obviously, which is still for me, the best adaptation of the source material. But I still love the hell out of the miniseries. It was my first introduction to the story. But yeah, so Larry actually takes on this older lady who has like a pill problem, and she ends up ODing and dying and stuff like that. And so they combined her character with Nadine's and just made them into one, which I guess for storytelling purposes made sense. But and that chick from Just Shoot Me, I'm trying to remember her name. I wrote it down. Laura San Giacomo. Yeah, she was from Just Shoot Me, and she's done a few other things and stuff like that. But she's great as Nadine in this, because she's another character. There's a reason that her and Harold latch together and just become involved in the manner in which that they do, because I feel like they're not 100% evil characters, but they're susceptible to temptation and to the allure of evil and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I don't think that they're totally evil characters. They're these interesting shades of gray, definitely more so on the darker side of things. But nonetheless, I think she does a terrific job in the role of Nadine, especially as you see her just kind of going off the deep end and getting involved with Harold. I will contend, though, that the Harold casting doesn't work for me in this. Harold being a chubby, pimply, whatever. They get the pimples going on, at least initially when we first meet him. But, he's skinny, and you can kind of tell he is on the handsome side. It's not that the actor portrays him poorly in this. It's just, I don't think the casting was right. The performance is good, casting, appearance, and stuff like that. It just didn't seem like Harold. But, in the book, Harold does eventually turn out looking the way that this character pretty much does the whole time. He gets muscular, he loses some weight, the pimples start to go away, but that's all transpiring in the story as he's just embracing his inner evil. And, you know, yeah, I really wish we could have got like the proper extent of the journals and all of this other stuff, but hey, I mean, stuff that I hope eventually ends up in this new adaptation. But so yeah, that was the only casting really in this that did not work for me, was the casting of Harold, because I thought everybody else, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Stu Redman or Franny, I have said countless times that I feel like they just have it too easy in this. It's like everything works out for them, and then you've got tragic characters like Larry, you know, which, you know, just wasn't in the cards for him, man. You know, it's just it's very, very sad in that regard. But I mean, still, I mean, Gary Sinise is Stu Redman to me. You know, Molly Ringwald. Even when I was showing this to the girl I was dating at the time last year, she was like, "Oh, that overbite, she's ugly," blah blah blah. And then we go and we're watching Breakfast Club a few weeks later, and she was just like, "Oh, okay, I guess she's pretty." But yeah, I like Molly Ringwald in the role. She fits Franny well. You know, just like Gary Sinise fits Stu well. And I mean, the rest of the cast, which is just stacked. I mean, I love Rob Lowe as Nick Andros. This was where he was in like the career repair mode when he did this, because he had that whole scandal with, yeah, underage girling and all that different stuff. And also another bit of really inspired casting is Miguel Ferrer as Lloyd. And he brings very similar to the shades of gray that we get from you know, both Harold and from Nadine. You can tell that he's a character that he's not completely evil, but he exudes a sense of loyalty to Flag, and so for that reason, even if he realizes he's damned, you know, he just goes with it because he knows his fate is kind of sealed. And you know, that's actually another really pivotal scene that I always think of when I'm rewatching this, because I just rewatched it yesterday. I love the scene where Harold just looks over at Nadine after they planted the bomb, and he's like, "Nadine, we're damned." And she's like, "I know." And there's just this, I don't know, this flippant acceptance of, you know, what they've done and just how horrible it is, but that, you know, I don't know, they've cast their lots, they've drawn their line in the proverbial sand and stuff, and, you know, it's a very, very effective scene. I love Matt Frewer. You know, everybody knows him from Max Headroom or Max with something like that, this weird sci-fi silliness from the 80s, but he was also on Orphan Black, which is a great Canadian sci-fi show, and I mean, he is terrific as Trashy. I mean, just his delivery of the "My Life for You," and when he first meets Flag and he's like, "I love you," it's just so scary effective. I mean, his performance, I think, is one of the unsung ones here in this, and obviously that's some stuff that I hope that we can get a little bit more of in that new adaptation. I mean, especially with him and the kid. Oof. Will we see that in the new CBS All Access adaptation? I don't know. That's some pretty grody shizzle, man, when it transpires. But, you know, it kind of shows how easily taken advantage of and manipulatable, I guess, Trashy is. And so Matt Frewer brings a lot to this role. He's tremendous. And gotta say, the VP from Homeland as Flag, I dig the hell out of him. He has the proper snark and swagger, and yet just scare factor as well. I mean, Jamie, what's his name? Jamie Sheridan, I want to say. Yeah, Jamie Sheridan is great in the role of Flag, and it's really, that is going to be like some of the most crucial casting imaginable. Now, we know that they have cast Flag for at least the pilot for the Amazon Dark Tower miniseries, or that limited series, as it's at least being billed as right now, but that hasn't even been picked up to series. But yeah, dude from Black Klansman, who's like the scariest of all the KKK peeps in it, he's playing Flag in that. I actually like that casting, but I think Jamie definitely brought something very, very signature and unique to the role, and just that sly, scary smile that he just bats, and you can see how he's a charmer, but yet can really just strike fear into everybody in Vegas as well. Yeah, he's terrific in this role. And supporting players like Ossie Davis as the judge is great. Bill Bach and Bake, I don't know. He's dude from Coach is who I always think of him from. Apparently, I don't watch SpongeBob, but I guess he had some pivotal involvement in that. So he is so good as Tom Cullen. Fantastic. M-O-O-N, that spells fantastic, man. And his performance in this is tremendous. He brings such warmth and likability to the simplicity of this character, and he's just he's so sweet, you know, as he's supposed to come across. And so, despite being this big, like, foreboding physical presence, you know, he's just a big kid. He's a sweetheart, and it's really so much of just the warmth to this story and the significance of his role, that he's a very important piece in the puzzle, in my estimation. Another guy that I got to give a shout out to is Ray Walston as Glenn Bateman. He's so wise, you know, and just every time he delivers the line, every time he calls Stu East Texas, it just brings a smile to my face, man. Yeah, you can just tell the experience and the leadership and the knowledge that he brings to the committee, and just the great dynamic he has with everybody. I was definitely sad that characters like, you know, Susan Stern and Dana Jurgens and stuff, that I feel like they really got the short end of the stick. Just like Larry's wife, whose name is eluding me, and we didn't really see the extent of the crazy arc with the rabid child and everything that they take on as their own. So that's stuff that I really hope they would do properly in the new miniseries on CBS All Access. But they did a hell of a job in the Marvel comic book. I cannot, you know, as much as I am praising this so significantly and how much I love it, the Marvel comic really is the best adaptation. I believe that they did 6 different limited series. So the first 5 were 5 issues each, and then the final one, The Night Has Come, if I recall correctly, that was 6 issues. But I mean, you've got Hard Cases miniseries is really good. American Nightmares is really good. I mean, they're all good, and the art is fantastic. Really, anytime Marvel has taken on a King property, whether it was N, all the Dark Tower stuff, it's just tremendous. But so yeah, who else did I not mention in the cast? How can you not mention Ruby Dee? She is terrific as Mother Abigail, and the makeup work that they put her under to make her look so old, great, very convincing, despite the fact that the actress was nowhere near the age of Mother Abigail. You know, I'm 102 years old and I still bake my own bread, so on and so forth. One thing I will say is that's one of the bits where you feel the scale of the story in some parts, but then there's other ones, like all the dream sequences, where it's very obvious that Hemingford Home is a soundstage and that you're not actually out in real cornfields and stuff like that. And it's those bits where it especially feels like, yeah, this is made for TV, you know? And yet there's other spots, you know, like all the stuff in Vegas, the stuff in that's supposed to be New York. I don't think they filmed in New York. I think they filmed in like Toronto probably or something. But I must say, when I was in Colorado watching this with the lady that I was seeing at the time, it was funny because we're looking and she's like, that's not Boulder. And of course we go and we look and it's like, oh yeah, filmed in Utah. Well, close enough, I guess, but still, I mean, Colorado, if you're familiar with Colorado and if you grew up there, you're obviously gonna be like, no, that's not where they're claiming it to be. But it all still looks really nice, all the mountain shots and everything, especially when our guys, you know, Ralph and Larry and Stu and Glenn have to just go on their march to Vegas and stuff. It's really, really well shot, and everything is just, I mean, yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful cinematography. You know, Mick Garris, his DP did a hell of a job, and all the shot setups are really, really good. And just that's where you feel the sheer scope of the storytelling, especially, is in those bits. And it's funny because Mick Garris cameos in this. He's got a very small role. I think he only has like 1 speaking line, maybe. But also Stephen King, he plays Teddy in this, which was a very, very small character in the novel. But he gets a couple lines in this, and he's not bad. I mean, you know, it's nothing as crazy over the top as his role in Creepshow, where he was probably all coked the fuck out and stuff. But I mean, he's good in the few scenes that we get him in, especially at the very end where he finds Stu and, you know, tell him when they're finally making their way back and stuff. But yeah, and on top of that, there's uncredited cameos from the likes of Joe Bob Briggs, which made me so happy seeing him. I forgot that he's at the very beginning in Arnett, and his character's name is Joe Bob as well, which is great. And this is like a pre-Monster Vision Joe Bob. That's where I first discovered him. He was just at Texas Frightmare this past weekend, and he gave such a fun panel. It just warmed my horror-loving heart big time, big time. So he has a cool cameo. Ed Harris has a great bit at the very beginning, and he actually has quite a few scenes. I was surprised that, you know, he kind of went uncredited, but yeah, he's one of those shady military guys who is just, he's just boozing as he realizes the world is crumbling and that there's no way for them to get a handle on what's transpiring. And yeah, he's got some very effective scenes, and then yeah, he ends up taking some liberties into his own hands. And yeah, Kathy Bates also has a very cool cameo, which is kind of an homage to some of the stuff that we see done in a much more grisly fashion in the books, or in the book, I should say. I mean, seriously, the execution that goes down live, which I believe they did it in the comic, if I remember correctly. So, like, the closest that we get to that is the bit with Kathy Bates actually, you know, broadcasting and proclaiming what's really transpiring. And then they're like, shut it down, stop saying this, you can't do that. And just the lengths that the government would go to try to cover up their fuck up, like, big time. So, both of their bits are great. Ed Harris, I mentioned Joe Bob, Kathy Bates, Stephen King, Mick Garris. So there's a bunch of different cameos from people, and it's fun. It keeps it interesting, but that's on top of the amazing ensemble that's already been put together here. Got to talk about the score. Rewatching this yesterday, I had forgotten just how much I adore this score, done by W.G. Snuffy Walden. That's a hell of a name, right? So besides just the song choices, you know, that we got of the actual soundtrack, the score is fantastic, and it really has, it's got this urban, like, western kind of thing going down a little bit. It's not the bum 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 and doing it with like fiddles and stuff. Oh God, it definitely has a very like western noir kind of ishness to it, and it's catchy, it's haunting, and it's just so very well done from top to bottom, and puts you in this vibe of just desolation almost, but yeah, a tinge of hopefulness in spite of everything going on around. So I want to track down the score now. I know it's out of print, but I was looking on Amazon. I think you can get it for around $20, and so it's not going to have, you know, the Don't Dream It's Over or Eve of Destruction or, you know, BOC or anything like that. But I mean, the score in and of itself is so incredibly memorable for me. I can't say that I remember like a memorable score from really any other King project that comes to mind, that adaptation or anything like that. But I mean, if you guys have one in mind, definitely, you know, toss the information down. So I mean, I just think Mick Garris did a tremendous job with this, and you know, he did tons of other King projects. You know, he did what, Sleepwalkers, he did Desperation, he did the TV version of The Shining. So I mean, he had his hands in a lot of different King projects, and I know there's a few others beyond that, but I really do feel like he did justice to the story, even though there was so much that they had to condense, you know, into like 6 and some change, like I was saying. But nonetheless, it's still so incredibly memorable for me. I think that it has held up very well. Yes, it's not of the R-rated grisliness, and it's kind of softened in some aspects, and I know a lot of people have big issues with the ending of this, and, you know, the hand of God aspect and all that. I personally dig it. I don't know. I was raised Reformed Baptist, and so these themes of, you know, just good and evil in their most just primal forms, I guess, you know, between Flag and Mother Abigail, and yet how not everybody on the Vegas side is completely evil, and not everybody on, you know, the Boulder Free Zone side is like super squeaky clean good. You know, it is really shades of gray, and that's why even when things are starting to topple and you know, you can see Flag is weakening, and, you know, the back half of the story and everything like that, and people are talking about, yeah, we're going to escape and go down to South America, blah, blah, blah. That's something that it's interesting, because we just see this from the American perspective when Captain Trips wiped out like 99% of the entire world's population. So it would be kind of fascinating at some point to see maybe even like a Night Surf approach, because Night Surf was the short story where Captain Trips was first introduced, and it's a bunch of college students and how they're dealing with, you know, just being isolated and, you know, everybody being dead and all this other stuff. I would love to see, like, how cool would it be to have a bunch of short stories set in all kinds of different parts of not just the country but the world, perhaps, of people, you know, just dealing and trying to survive and everything like that. I mean, one of my favorite chapters in The Stand, which is only in the uncut version, is where you hear about all of these scenarios of people who survived the flu, but yet died in other weird, wacky ways and stuff like that. You know, it's sad, and there's almost like a black humor to it of sorts. So I would love to have just, man, how about an anthology? If King is going to let people like Richard Chismore play in the Castle Rock Playground, wouldn't it be badass to maybe have an anthology where a bunch of different authors each write their own short story, just focusing on characters in the Stand universe? I think that would be, I don't know, that's just coming to me as I'm sitting here just rattling off talking about this. So yes, May 8th, 1994, 25 years ago today, I was 10 years old, and yeah, I was watching The Stand deliver, as the New York Post says on the back of this. If you get the chance to track down the DVD, it's got all kinds of dope bonus features, storyboard comparisons, makeup effects, there's commentary, which is really cool. You've got commentary with Mick Garris, Stephen King, Rob Lowe, Ruby Dee, Miguel Ferrer, Jamie Sheridan, and editor Pat McMahon. It's been a while since I've listened to that commentary, and I honestly really want to go back and watch it now. You've got a great making of featurette, all kinds of different, production notes and stuff like that. I still think this holds up, but everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Obviously, the book is your best bet, and especially the uncut version. I saw a little bit of a debate amongst King fans recently. I think it was about the time that I did the 40th anniversary review last year of the novel proper, and people were talking about what's the best version to read, what's the definitive version. Some were arguing for the original, which is like 8 and some change, I want to say, and then others were saying, oh no, it has to be the uncut. I personally prefer the uncut, even if it makes certain references not make as much sense by King moving up the decades as he did. Like Stu especially, having been, in Vietnam in the original story, and it just doesn't make sense, and it actually makes his relationship with Franny way weirder. Yeah, I don't know. I just love the uncut version. I love the Bernie Wrightson illustrations in there. They really add some additional flavor. But yeah, you can like them all. You can like all the different iterations of The Stand. I personally love them all. It's in my top 3 favorite Cy King stories ever. Sometimes it's my number 1, sometimes it's 2, 3. It just fluctuates around along with Pet Sematary, and that is, as I've classified it here on the show countless times, the unholy trinity. Ha ha ha. So yeah, I guess that sums it up for my thoughts and my gushing about my beloved first cognizant experience with Cy King's work in the television adaptation of The Stand that premiered 25 years ago today on ABC. Tracked down this DVD. I saw some people in the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group saying they found it for like $5 in the bargain bin. It was either at Walmart or Best Buy or one of those places, but obviously you can jump on Amazon, you can track it down, and I highly, highly recommend it if you have not watched it before. I love it. It's so, so good. So I have been Jaime in Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where I have my own personal YouTube channel. If you basically just search in Fuegotainment, that's where you can track that down. And I've been doing reviews of all the Star Wars films this year as we march towards Episode 9. I did Oscar coverage where I reviewed all 8 of the Best Picture nominations, and then I still have reviews coming out of last month's Phoenix Film Festival that will be going up very soon as well. But obviously, if you're here on the horror show, you want the spooktacular content. Cecil and I just did trailer reactions for Crawl, I believe it was, the Gator film from dude who did Hills Have Eyes remake, the Piranha remake, Piranha 3D, High Tension. That looks awesome. Yeah, so we do at least 1, sometimes 2 episodes a day, trailer reactions, film reviews. We just got done with Texas Frightmare and doing some convention coverage out there. It was my pleasure and honor to talk to the director of I'll Take Your Dead, Chad Archibald, and he also did a fantastic film called The Heretics last year. Black Fawn Films, pretty much everything that I have seen from them has been spot on point. Great getting to meet him and Benner and just getting to spend some time with them. The Blood Bath and Beyond guys, shout out to Jay and Trav, had a ton of fun with them as well. So convention coverage from that is going to be coming at you very soon. I also talked to a couple of different great artists along with Chad. So yes, good times had by all there, so keep your eyes out for that stuff. And make sure that if you share this video, share it with the hashtag Hail to Stephen King, like, Subscribe if you haven't done that. Obviously, hit that little bell thing-a-lang so you can get all of those notifications about when we put up content just like this. Hail to Stephen King is normally on Tuesdays and on Saturdays, but yes, since we were just getting back, we drove to Dallas. We were idiots. I don't know why we thought that was a good idea. I know we were trying to like save money on airfare, but a 15-hour drive versus a 2-hour flight, I don't know, man. I don't know. But we had a bunch of content to catch up on Tuesday, throwing out a bunch of those trailers and so on and so forth. So normally, Hail to Stephen King is not on Wednesday. It is on Tuesday and on Saturday. But it actually worked out well, being the actual day, May 8th. Yeah, it was the 25-year anniversary. So yeah, Ka has a plan, and I guess I was on the proper path for that. So I guess that is going to be the end of the proceedings here, everybody. So I will say hasta luego, sin amigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. I hope that we get to share more palavras sooner rather than later. Say thank you. And until that instance occurs, remember, stay scared and read Stephen King. I know I'm telling you to watch Stephen King this time, but you know, if you haven't read The Stand, I know it's an undertaking, but get to it.